Well, my granddad originally moved here because my granddad rented farms around this area, so we've always rented dairy farms. And then eventually he moved to Hesper Farm in the 80s, and we started renting that as well from a local estate. And from there we started the Aireburn herd, which is the herd of cows that we have now. It's pedigree Holsteins. And once my dad took over, Sam Moorhouse, he carried that herd on, took the Holsteins further on, and that's been very much his passion since he was involved. And in the 90s he managed to buy the farm, and we've sort of been here ever since, really. We've got multiple generations of families that have been on this farm in cows, and throughout that time we've always bred towards having a strong cow that can live a long time, have multiple lactations, and you know, there's no reason for us to move away from that, really. It works well for our system, and it works well for the dairy as well that's started up alongside it.
Well, the herd is the Aireburn herd, and it was founded in 1968, and so that's quite a while ago. And the management of it basically is a typical for this area. It's a grassland-based system, so it's grazing in the summer and silage in the winter. We do a partial TMR, so we always buffer feed the cows, which is basically silage and caustic soda, a blend, and bruised grains. That's the feeding system. We milk through a herringbone parlour, and they're housed in cubicles in the winter and grazed in the summer. Well, I like everything about the breed. I like the diversity that's in the gene pool. I like the fact that they give more milk. I like the fact that the temperament's better. I like everything about them. For us, they're the ideal cow. I mean, the breed changes from time to time. It's always evolving, but at the moment I would say the Holstein breed's never been better. If you want a more robust cow, we can provide that. If you want a grazing type cow, it can provide that as well. There's really nothing it can't do, I would say.
You know, we've always taken pride in looking after the cows and making sure that the cows are healthy. They're on clean bedding all the time. There's always fresh feed, clean water available, and then they're out when they can be out. I think for us it's just the system we've always run, and when we talk about high welfare, I think it's just simply that. With any animal, you know, you need clean water, fresh feed, clean bedding, and that's really what it comes down to, and just maintaining the standards all the time. I kind of was here full-time from probably about 2013, and when I came back I was working in Australia, and I came back to the farm, we were considering a few options of how we could either scale the farm or produce a product with our own milk. And but I think ultimately what suited us is that because we do care for the cows in the way that we do, and because we feed them in the way that we feed them, we were producing this high-fat, high-protein milk that lends itself well to the production of, you could say, anything like cheeses, cream, yoghurt, you know, ice cream and so on. So we found ourselves thinking more towards that side of things. You know, could we start dairy, and how much would it cost, and so on. For me, if we were going to start up something, if we were going to diversify and do something, it had to be a little bit different, because there's a lot of ice cream out there, and a lot of people doing it really well. Same with cheeses as well. I mean, that's not to say there's not room for more, but I think for me, we need to have a point of difference. And I think I was reading an article on Icelandic dairy production or something like that, and it mentioned Skyr in there, and it was talking about, I did a little bit more research, and it's Skyr, this high protein yoghurt from Iceland, and it just seemed to fit the market trends at the time. You know, everybody's talking about protein back then, certainly, and still are now, and it just seemed to be something that could work, really. And then after sort of finding that, I did a bit of research. No one was doing it in the UK at the time, so I ended up flying to Iceland, and from there met a producer who was willing to sort of show us how to do it, I suppose. And Yeah, and I tried it as well for the first time when I got into Reykjavik, and yeah, it just seemed to be the way forward for us. Flying to Iceland and trying the Skyr is it's, if nothing else, it's a decent holiday. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if it doesn't work out that way, then it's fine. But I think naivety sort of in that, to take a product that hasn't been sold in the UK before, hasn't been popularised, and then try and popularise it and educate people on what it was a massive undertaking. And I think it's almost the biggest advantage I had was not being aware of that, if you like. And we kind of just, once I got there and once I met the people I needed to meet and we started producing it, it just sort of grew from there. So we built the dairy on the farm in late 2015 and started selling it that year, the end of that year. And luckily timed it well with the beginning of a new farm shop near us in Skipton, Keelan Farm Shop, and it sold really well. So we just kind of kept reinvesting from there. It just kept snowballing and growing. With it being Skyr, it was challenging to sort of educate the consumer, but there's other Skyr brands that launched actually just similar times to us, so almost that did us a bit of good, because all of a sudden the marketing was done for us in some ways. Everybody was, the adverts were on television for everyone to see, so it was kind of helping us in some ways, and we're operating at a different end of the market completely. So that was slightly helpful, but also we invested a lot into the brand itself. So Hesper, at the time when we launched it was Hesper Farm, now it's Hesper, but same thing, just slightly cleaner branding if you like. So we invested a lot into that, and the packaging as well, to make sure that was right and that we could get it onto a shelf in any farm shop, in any retailer we wanted to. To find the marketing that we did, we're talking about it as a health food really. It's no fat in it, and the skim milk, high protein, high calcium and so on, and that's from the concentration process. So it lends itself really well to a health food market. And it was pretty much that really. We're talking about two things: one, the health food market, and two, the provenance of the product. The ultimate aim is obviously just to maximise what we use from our own farm, and that's kind of on the doorstep, and the dairy's there. So that's kind of our USP, I suppose. That it's all from made on the farm, but it's also a good looking brand and can do well next to in a retailer. Depending on what we're doing, we just take it straight from the dairy and we pasteurise it on site, and we use that to make various other things. But we didn't have a skimmer until this year for most of the dairy. So we've been working with Dales Dairies, who have a local dairy, in which they basically take our milk, skim the cream off, and take the cream, and we're left with the skim, and they do that for us. But like I said, we've just installed a pasteuriser and separator this year, so we'll hope to just do everything ourselves from now on. But that's been a good relationship for us with Dales Dairies. So you're talking going from the raw milk tank, the bulk tank, across the yard into the dairy's bulk tank, and from there we're drawing it, pasteurising it, putting it into the vats, the batch tanks, to produce Skyr, and then at that point you add in your Skyr culture, your vegetarian rennet, and I'll be doing that at like 9 at night, and then the first thing we come back to it about 5 in the morning, and then the guys will start production about 5 in the morning. You're breaking the curd, which is just stirring the curd basically, and then putting it through the machines to start straining it out, and then potting it or mixing it, depending on if we're doing flavours or not. If we're going in as another Skyr variety on a shelf, and we're next to maybe 2 other strawberry Skyrs that already exist, and we have our strawberry Skyr, it's difficult to stand out, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do on a shelf in a retailer. Is you're sat in the yoghurt aisle, and you've got however many hundreds of varieties of yoghurt, and then Skyr itself has probably got another 2 or 3 next to you as well. So you do have to have a point of difference and get that across as well. That's the other challenge, is making sure you get that across in the packaging. But in terms of flavours, for us, it's just trying to make something we like, I guess, and then so hopefully other people like it as well. I kind of got advice from a local dairy to here, and just kind of tried to do everything the right way from the start. So tried to get them on side early. So whether that's an environment agency, they come and inspect it, they approve your premises for the production of food products or whatever, and it was just kind of working with them, if you like, and listening to what they wanted to have, and then put the paperwork in place that they needed. And it can be a hassle, and it's difficult, and it only gets bigger. But my thing would say, if I was to say it, give some advice on it, just say do it early and get it right early, and then just build on that. Because once it goes wrong, or if it's not there and you're getting challenged by whoever you're getting challenged by, whether you're dealing with a new retailer, it just becomes even more difficult. The way we farm lends itself well to sort of reducing the amount of carbon emissions we can produce, because I think everybody's talking about it at the moment. I think it's always been there, and it's always something that everyone's sort of considered, maybe not had a word, or maybe it's not been kind of as discussed as heavily as it is now. But I think if we're talking about food miles, which is really something that we can do something about, because like I said, we're producing the milk on the farm, and then we're also producing an end product from the farm as well, then that's really the way forward for us, and that works back into the whole carbon discussion, because we can do it all on farm, and then if it's going direct to consumer or it's going to local farm shops, then and if people are in the position to buy from those places, then it's kind of the way forward for us. It's just making use of what we have available to us around the farm, and one of those being milk and the other being quite a large amount of grass. So I think the achievement is that we've got a business now that supports 6 people that work for us, and I think, you know, it supports that, and it also supports the farm as well, and does what we hoped it would do, in that it provides us a second income and a more secure income for the farm. I think that's ultimately all we were sort of aiming for, really. I'm still, like I said, I'm still totally learning myself, but I mean, if I was to give advice on it, I think I would probably just be saying that, one, make sure the figures stack up at first. So make sure that you have a very good idea and a robust costing model on the products that you're going to produce. And if you have that, that provides a really good base to go on, because once you have that robust costing model, you can then ensure that any decisions that you make, you're confident in that you are going to benefit from it, because ultimately that's what you need to be doing. You need to be benefiting from any any business relationship that you have with anybody, retailer or anything like that, because that's how the business is going to grow and sort of go on. And secondly, it's just if you're going to be dealing with a retail environment, is just make sure that your packaging's right and so on, because it just becomes a hassle when you have, you know, if you want to do a huge print of packaging and all of a sudden you need to make changes or amends, then you can end up racking up costs unnecessarily. So it's just about making sure those things are right.